thing is, when you look in Lower Egypt, there's not much there. I think a lot of people get this misconception that all of glory in ancient Egypt is built around one great thing, which is the pyramids. The pyramids are a marvel and a feat in itself, but all the other major things, such as the temples, such as the Valley of the Kings, such as the palaces, such as the culture, all the elements that make ancient Egypt what it is, all those monuments and all those burial sites and things such as that, that comes from Upper Egypt, which is about 800 to 1,000 kilometers away. That's a very far distance. So it's like two different worlds back in that time, because there was no cars, there was no planes and none of that. You had to walk and travel that far up there. So people that came from Upper Egypt traveled from Upper Egypt, which is in the south, and they basically had war campaigns to go to the north. So when you say who's the first king of Egypt, or as you want to call Kemet, that would be a man by the name of Norma, or Menes, as they would call him. That is a black person. That is a person that came from the south. Every time ancient Egypt was actually unified, it came from the south. Now there are misconceptions. When you go to the Great Pyramids, the people of Lower Egypt are the Levant people, they are the Berbers, and they are Mediterranean descent and Asian descent. Those people are the original people of Lower Egypt. Now there's been a lot of mixing and intertwining within Europeans as well, from the French to the British to Romans and Greeks. So you'll see that in their bloodline as well, that they're a mixed race people in that area. And then eventually Arabs, as you want to call Middle Eastern people, eventually took over that area. And ever since then, for the last 600-700 years or more, those people have been settled in what you would call Lower Egypt, or Cairo, or what you would call back in the modern times, the biblical times, or you want to call history times, would have been considered Memphis. So the problem is, a lot of people believe that that is the marvel of ancient Egypt. But when you look at all the details, and you look at the kingship, when you look at the white crown, when you look at the ceremonies, when you look at the religion and the prayers to Amun and the Egyptian gods, all that stuff comes from the south by Nubia, Ethiopia, Somali. When you look at all those people on the walls in Upper Egypt, they look very similar to the East African phenotype, because that's where they migrated from. And they settled on the banks of the Nile, because the banks of the Nile had the most fertile land for agriculture. And during that time, when they created this city that we would call Kemet, or this country that you would call Kemet, which you would call modern day Luxor, or what we would call Thebes, which is 100 years older than Memphis. That proves the actual discrediting of everything. When people say, oh, it started in Lower Egypt, it didn't start in Lower Egypt. They were two kings. They were two different kingdoms, or whatever you want to call it. So the kingdom in Lower Egypt is the people of the Berbers, the lighter skinned people, fairer skinned people, etc. Those people are the original people of Lower Egypt. The people that are the people of Upper Egypt are what you would call Sub-Saharan African, or as you want to call mixed race black people. They're black people. They're what you would call African, East African, North African, and mostly Nubians. Nubians is a new term. They just use that as a new term to try to separate Egypt from Nubia, but there was no borders back then. There was no borders at all back then. Where was the fence at? There was no fence like they got in Mexico and in America. So people could go across these different lines and intermingle and have children. So that's kind of how most of these things happen. And as you get closer to invaders coming in, the people would have got lighter in skin tone. So when people say these egregious things, as Egypt was not a black civilization, or it wasn't a African civilization, do they not know that Egypt, the actual state as a whole, is on the continent of Africa?